It's interesting hearing the barney between Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. Considering that they're on the same page on this issue, it's actually extremely interesting to hear he's trying to find an area where you can disagree on. And it really, at this point in time, most of the Irish public know what caused the collapse. Most of the Irish public know what got us into this position. And we've moved on from that debate. And the debate, the wee argument that you are having here is an argument that's far too late, and it's already happened. What they're concerned about is how we move forward, and there is no argument between the prospective parties, Fine Gael, Labour or Fianna Fáil, in relation to the roadmap in the future. I must say, it really sickened me to listen to Deputy Lenihan throw out the accusations that me and others of my party, and indeed many other people who aren't involved in politics, people who are involved in the international bond market themselves, people who are economists, who have academic qualifications in these areas, people who are international observers, talk about economic treason. That the fact that we believe that there should be burden sharing or burning of bondholders, which is an internationally accepted term, the fact that we actually echo those words, the fact that we put forward these type of proposals, that Minister Lenihan or Deputy Lenihan has the audacity to stand there and say that it is akin to economic treason. And maybe he was struggling to find some type of words in his contribution today that could distinguish him different from what the government are doing, because the government are following the roadmap that he laid down. But his analysis of the situation, to say that as a result of others putting forward these type of suggestions, these type of alternatives, has lent to the severity of the crisis, is completely off the mark. To think, and this comes from a former Minister of Finance, to think that these international investment agencies, the people who make decisions, for example in 2010, to withdraw over €100 billion of deposits from Irish banks, made those decisions because Pearse Doherty stood up in this chamber, or because Konstantin Gurdjieff or other economists or other people who won the Nobel Prize has decided to say that there should be burden sharing on senior bondholders, is absolutely ludicrous. These people make hard-nosed investments. Some of the investments are governed by very strict criteria in terms of ratings of debt in banks and sovereign debt. And to think that because this debate has gone on is a result of where we're at, or has added to it. The reality is the economic treason that we all know that has happened as a result of Lenihan and others sitting on those benches. If that is your only concern, Deputy Lenihan, if that is your only concern, then that's fair enough. Yeah. But the economic treason that has happened in this country is when Deputy Lenihan, sitting on those benches as a minister, hung, drew and quartered the Irish economy. That is what he did. That is what you did, and you're scoring cheap points here today. In relation to the stress test, I'm sharing time with Deputy Pearse Doherty, and I want to just focus in on a number of points. In any business where there is serious losses, where there is serious debt, the business can be restored if two things can be injected. First of all, if the losses can be absolved, and that is somebody comes forward with a blank cheque and says, there you go, we wipe out all your losses. And the second thing is to restore confidence to that business so the business can continue to trade. And that is the same thing that we're seeing with the Irish banking sector. So does the €24 billion commitment that this government has given re-inject that confidence to the Irish banking sector? And there is signs, and that is to be welcomed, that there are early signs that is having that effect, and Minister Noonan dealt with that in his speech. But as I said here last Thursday, our approach to the banking sector needs to be threefold. One is we have to have a functioning banking system. The state writing a bank cheque and dealing with all the losses that will accrue in the banking system is one way of doing it. Restoring international confidence in the banking sector will help. But there needs to be two other pillars to that banking strategy. And the two other pillars ask to be restoring confidence to the Irish economy, and the other pillar is about reducing the debt or the burden to the Irish taxpayer. And it is in those two pillars that this government has failed in relation to their approach in the aftermath of the stress test. Because while we can write a blank cheque and sort out the losses in the banks, the question is, does that take the sovereign further into a position of unsustainability? And I will continue to press this, Minister. And I'm asking you, in the spirit of openness and transparency, please ask the Department of Finance to run the computational models that you have in your department in relation to the point of unsustainability of this state. You know, prove to me that I am wrong. Prove to others out there that we are wrong, that this state is now in a point of unsustainability. You have the information, you have the access to the data, you have the department, you have the ability to run these models and present the figures there, so that hopefully, because please God that we are wrong, because nobody wants us to be in a position of sovereign default. Minister, I've continually outlined a number of problems in relation to your approach, and one of them is the burning of senior bondholders. It's not the solution in itself. It's not the be-all and end-all. There is no simple solution to this banking crisis, but it is part of the solution. And to allow senior, unguaranteed bondholders to be paid in full by the Irish state while they are at this minute burning themselves, selling those bonds in the secondary market, taking a hit themselves, is immoral. It is wrong. It is going to cause serious distress and depression on the domestic economy, because it leads to us having to inject money, additional money, and to capitalise those banks, which will mean that we will have to further implement austerity measures. The final point I want to make in relation to the stress test is an issue I continue to raise, and it's an issue we need to get a grip on. The details, when we look through the details of the stress test, we can see the losses that are going to be accrued in the banks over the 3-year period. We can see the lifetime losses in the banks, but if we just focus in on the 3-year period, and the 3-year period tells us that in relation to residential mortgages, that €9,491 million is the loss in the 4 Irish institutions in relation to residential mortgages. €9.4 billion that the 4 banks are going to take a hit on by the end of the 3-year period. Now, very simply, we can write the blank cheque, we can give the banks, as you propose to do, the blank cheques which will write off those losses. But the question needs to be asked, what happens to the people who owe that money to the banks? When will they be given? And I don't want to put it in very simplistic terms, because it's too serious of a debate to put it in simplistic terms, but what happens to them? What happens to the people who hold that, that IOU to the banks of €9.4 billion that they have to pay by in the 3 years' time? We're going to write off the losses for the banks. What happens to them? And we need to come forward with serious proposals, because, as you rightly said, what we need to do is we need to get people spending in the Irish economy again. The Exchequer figures in March has shown very clearly, and there are serious problems down the line. I know it's been offset by excise duties and corporation tax at this point in time, but unless we get income tax returns up, unless we get VAT returns up, we are going to see a seriously depressed domestic economy, and we need to deal with that there. So we do need to get people spending. But if you have a situation where there are people out there, Irish citizens, 95% of these distressed mortgages are in this state, if you have people out there who are in hock to the bank of 9.5. Now, they will be in hock more than that there, but 9.5 is the estimation of what will not be paid back in that three-year period. How can we get people spending if that type of debt hangs around their neck? So if we're writing it off for the banks, we need to come up with proposals in relation to how we deal with the individuals. I don't have the answers here. Our party doesn't have the answers in relation to this information. There has to be models looked at in terms of non-recourse mortgages and also debt relief. And very distinct from interest relief, because what you're proposing is a drop in the ocean It will just be wiped out by an ECB interest hike. What you need is serious proposals brought forward from government, and maybe the best thing to do is set up some type of advisory panel that will look at this issue in detail. We've done it now, and it's cost us tens of millions of euro in relation to the banks, but we need to do the same, have the same focused approach to the mortgage holders themselves. Thank you.